of money has already been brought in, and what becomes of that money up in the air as well. I want to bring in CTV's U.S. political analyst Eric Ham now to discuss. Eric, good morning to you. So it's happening pretty quickly. The Supreme Court has agreed to hear this case. What does that signal?
Well, we have seen the White House actually seek emergency relief from the Supreme Court. And every single time the White House has sought to actually have these cases expedited, the Supreme Court has actually taken these cases up, which suggests that they are prepared to rule. And what we have seen, at least in the string of victories that the White House has racked up from the Supreme Court, that it looks as though at least 6 of the conservative justices are prepared at least to rule in Donald Trump's favor. Now, we don't know at this time, but based on what we have seen, Donald Trump has won injunctive relief 17 out of the 23 times that he has brought emergency cases before the Supreme Court. Now, just to give some perspective, the Biden administration did not actually seek that many emergency cases before the Supreme Court in their entire 4 years in office. Already we have seen the Trump administration seek that relief more than the Biden administration in just 7 months in office. So what we're seeing here is now there is a growing concern that the Supreme Court is acting more like the legal arm of President Donald Trump than in a third branch of government where they're an actual check. In addition to that, we are learning that there is growing tension and friction between the lower courts, who are being constantly overruled by the Supreme Court as a result of these cases that are continuing to be brought. And also, very quickly, Marcia, I'll also add that what we're also seeing is when the Supreme Court takes up emergency cases, they don't necessarily have to provide a justification why they ruled the way they did. They can just simply rule on an up or down vote from the 9 justices, which also makes it very difficult to understand or ascertain how, in fact, the justices came up with the rulings that we're seeing that they're making, at least on behalf of the president.
Interesting. So they don't need to explain themselves, in other words.
No, not when they're actually asked for an emergency docket cases. They can just rule, very much like what we saw recently in the case of the National Guard in California. What we saw were just basically a blanket ruling with the courts just providing ruling, not necessarily providing explanations as to why they ruled the way they did.
Okay. I hear you loud and clear. Others will say, you know, it's not a guarantee that this is going to go in Trump's favor. The Supreme Court has surprised us before, but yes, as you point out, they have widened presidential powers. If the Supreme Court, Eric, strikes down the tariffs, what happens after that? I'm sure you heard Scott Bassett over the weekend telling NBC News that they might have to pay some money back to countries that have paid the tariffs. But where does this leave Congress?
Well, yeah, I think if, in fact, and you're right, the White House does say that they have a plan B in terms of how they will continue to try to keep these tariffs in place. But one actual way they can move forward is President Trump still has control of Congress. So he can actually move to allow Congress to give him the authorities to actually keep these tariffs in place. Because what we have seen from the lower court rulings is that the president overstepped his authority because, as the lower courts believe, it is Congress, not the White House, that actually makes these policies, at least when it comes to tariffs and trade. And so the president can simply ask Congress, which is controlled by Donald Trump's party, to actually give him this authority.
Eric Ham, always great to have you with us. Eric is our CTV News U.S. political analyst.